What if you could read someone's true feelings without them saying a single word? Lena, a brilliant psychologist in a quiet Berlin café, believed she could. As she sipped her coffee, her gaze fell upon Julian, a man across the room engrossed in a book. He had an attractive, easygoing demeanor, but Lena wasn't interested in his face. Her focus was on his hands, his posture, the subtle movements that told a different story. He'd occasionally glance up, not at anyone in particular, but his eyes would briefly sweep over her section of the cafe before returning to the page. It was a flicker of attention, a fleeting gesture that most would miss, but to Lena it was a silent invitation, a puzzle waiting to be solved. She found herself captivated, not by his looks, but by the quiet language he spoke without knowing it. He was a perfect specimen for her study, and a tantalizing challenge to her professional detachment. She watched as he shifted in his seat, his body subtly angling toward her, another piece of the nonverbal puzzle. He ran a hand through his hair, not out of impatience, but with a deliberate, almost performative grace. Lena felt a strange mix of professional curiosity and a personal, undeniable pull. Lena continued to observe Julian, her psychologist's mind immediately latching onto the first telltale sign. He was unconsciously mirroring her movements. When she lifted her coffee cup, he adjusted his grip on his own book. When she crossed her legs, a moment later he shifted his own posture, angling his body slightly more towards her. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, a subconscious dance of two strangers. But the real giveaway was his smile. It was not a broad, social smile. It was a fleeting, almost private twitch of the lips that would appear whenever she made a small gesture, as if he was reacting to her, not to anything in his book. This was no professional observation anymore. Lena could feel a warmth spreading through her chest, an unfamiliar and unnerving sensation. She was supposed to be a detached observer, an expert cataloging human behavior, yet here she was, feeling a flicker of something personal and exciting. Her rational mind was screaming at her to leave, to not get involved, but her curiosity, both professional and personal, was far too strong. She needed to know if her hypothesis was correct. She decided to test him. Lena deliberately uncrossed her legs and then recrossed them again. She watched, heart pounding, as Julian shifted in his seat. He uncrossed his legs and then, with a natural, fluid movement, crossed them in the exact same direction as hers. Her lips curved into a tiny smile. But as she watched him, Julian's head suddenly snapped up, his eyes meeting hers across the cafe. He didn't look away. Instead, he held her gaze, and a wide, genuine smile spread across his face, a silent acknowledgement of the game they were now playing. The direct eye contact from Julian was a jolt to Lena's system, and for a moment, her analytical mind completely short-circuited. He held her gaze for a beat longer than was socially acceptable, then gave a slight knowing nod before returning to his book. It was an acknowledgement, a silent message that he was aware of her attention and, more surprisingly, that he was reciprocating it. Lena's professional curiosity was now fully entangled with her personal feelings. She took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure and focus on her work. She noticed his feet, a crucial, often overlooked sign in body language. Even though the rest of his body was angled towards her, his feet were still pointed slightly away, towards the door, a subtle sign of readiness or a desire to leave. This was a contradiction, a fascinating puzzle. Then he performed another action. He reached out and adjusted the salt shaker on his table, a tiny, unnecessary act. This was a classic displacement behavior, a way of releasing nervous energy. He was subconsciously nervous, and Lena knew why. It was the same nervousness she felt, a tension born of unspoken attraction. He was not just aware of her, he was actively reacting to her presence. The silence between them was now charged with an electric current, a palpable energy that made the air in the cafe feel thick and heavy. Lena's pulse quickened. The detached professional was gone, replaced by a woman in the midst of a thrilling, silent courtship. Lena's analytical gaze settled on Julian's face one last time as he finally looked up from his book. And in that fleeting moment, she saw it, the fourth and most telling sign. His pupils dilated just a fraction, a primal subconscious reaction to something he found deeply appealing. And then a micro smile, so quick it was barely there. A genuine, private expression that only a trained eye could catch. It was a silent, undeniable admission. In that instant, every piece of the puzzle clicked into place for Lena. The mirroring of her movements. The nervous adjustment of his jacket. The curious contradiction of his feet pointed away while his torso leaned forward. All of it made perfect, beautiful sense now. He wasn't just aware of her. He was actively and openly, if silently, broadcasting his interest. The professional veneer Lena had so carefully maintained crumbled entirely, replaced by the thrilling rush of the chase. She felt a profound sense of clarity and anticipation, a rush of energy she hadn't felt in years. He closed his book with a soft thud and, with a confident air that belied his earlier nervousness, rose from his seat. The air between them was so thick with unspoken tension it was almost suffocating. He walked directly toward her table, the unspoken confrontation building with every single step. Her heart pounded in her ears as he stopped before her. "I couldn't help but notice," he said, his voice a low, smooth melody. "You're quite the expert observer." Lena's breath hitched. She had been so consumed by her analysis, she hadn't considered that he might also be analyzing her. "A keen eye for detail," she responded, a faint blush creeping up her neck. He chuckled, a soft, pleasant sound that seemed to fill the charged air between them. "I'm Julian," he offered, extending a hand. "And you are?" "The one who has been observing me all morning." His grin was infectious, completely disarming her. "Lena," she replied, shaking his hand, the warmth of his palm a physical anchor to the surreal moment. The confrontation wasn't a climax, it was a beginning. A thrilling, intellectual dance of two minds equally matched. "So," Julian began, gesturing to the empty chair opposite her, "I'm curious. What did you find?" Lena's professional instincts kicked back in, but this time they were fueled by genuine personal interest. "4 hidden signs," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "The mirroring of my movements, the nervous displacement behavior with the salt shaker, the conflicting direction of your feet, and, well, the dilated pupils and micro smile." Julian's laughter was unrestrained. "You're good," he said, leaning forward in a way that mirrored her own earlier posture. "I had a feeling you were. You see, I'm a psychology professor at the university. This morning was an experiment." Lena's mind raced. An experiment? Was this all a test? Her initial frustration was quickly replaced by a new wave of intrigue. "An experiment on what?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. "On the observers," he replied, his grin widening. "I wanted to see who would catch me. And you not only caught me, but you broke down every single sign in order. Most people only ever see 1 or 2. The final twist landed not with a thud, but a playful chime. Julian hadn't been attracted to her in the conventional sense. His subtle body language had been a deliberate, calculated experiment to find a kindred spirit, a fellow expert who could decipher his signals. And Lena had passed the test with flying colors. It was a new kind of attraction, one built not on physical chemistry alone, but on a deep, intellectual connection. Julian's gaze softened. "Now that the experiment is over," he said, "I have a new question." Lena felt her heart flutter. "What is it?" she asked, already captivated by the new loop he was creating. "Would you like to continue this conversation over dinner?" he asked, his smile genuine and free of any hidden intent. Lena's mind, which had been so busy analyzing his every move, was now blissfully quiet. There was only one answer, and for the first time that day, her body language was perfectly aligned with her words. She returned his smile, a genuine, private expression that was hers alone. "I would like that very much, Julian." The loop was complete, but a new one had just begun. The chase was over, but the story was far from it.